Good morning, Africa. How's everything going? Welcome to the 19th episode of the podcast Africa the Next Big Thing. And this is the last episode for this year, 2022. I hope you guys had an amazing year. And I hope you have also started planning your next year, resolution, like what you are planning for 2023. So we are just 2 days away from 2023. It's almost 30. Yeah, it's 30th December now. So only one day left. Today is also almost over. So, you guys know the mission of this podcast, to help African entrepreneurs become influent leaders by promoting out your brand, your culture, your business skills, and sharing your success stories so that you will be easily connected to a lot of foreign investors. And this will also keep the African youth inspired. So as on your request, yes, we have started bringing lot of CEOs, lot of co-founders of various companies who are making a huge revolution in the country, in the continent. And for the next year on my podcast, I'm also going to bring huge investors from Dubai, Saudi Arabia, from North America, because I'm in touch with them now. Like, they should also come and inspire the African how they can do it and how can they come to Africa and invest. So the guest that we have today is somebody who's an entrepreneur, who doesn't need any introduction. His name is Mr. Pishikeni Tukura. He is the co-founder at Aya. Aya is a company, it's a web-based gig platform that enables startups to access the best vetted African skilled talent at a fraction of any cost without worrying about payments. What he's doing is currently building inclusive financial tools using blockchain technology for African talent, and with the help of his company Aya. So let's know more, about Aya from him. He's a great man. He's a big man, and here he comes. He's live with us. Yes, Mr.
Hi
Pishigeni, how
guys,
are you?
very fine, thank you. Hi everyone, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Chirag, for the opportunity to speak, to a larger audience. It's always exciting to share the Aya vision and what exactly we're here to achieve. So my name is Pishikeni Tukura, rightly like you said. I have about 7 years of experience. I've worked in product management, strategy, operations, business development, partnerships. And I think that's the amazing thing about working with startups, right? You get to touch
Yes,
every key part of running a scalable business. My own
yes.
background, I studied industrial physics in university with a minor in electronics and information technology. And that kind of exposed me to the potential that technology had to offer. I also had like an infrastructure background, networking, and a bit of cybersecurity. And that, was some of the first touch points where I saw how scalable technology could be. And from there, I kind of moved into, the brick and mortar businesses, did a little bit in agriculture. But then I went back into technology because I could see how one solution could touch millions of people across the continent. And getting started, there are always so many challenges. But I think one of the key things was not giving up. I mean, we always hear this every time, don't give up. But it was really important for us to be able to get here. I also worked with a company called X. We were the first in Africa to build an intra-African remittance wallet, partnered with the likes of global African, payment giants like InterSwitch, Flutterwave, and to
Wow,
enable cross-border transactions at, a very low cost. But
great.
interestingly, something happened. We had a talent problem, right? So the company did not scale because we couldn't access talents. And it's interesting that from there, I also partnered with the Nigerian government to run a training institution to get world-class software engineers called Tide Lab. Currently have about 150 trained with 85% placed in both local and global companies. And when I met Eric, Eric was at that time the CEO of X. And when we saw that there was a talent problem, the first thing you do as a founder is you talk to other founders, right? Are you guys having the same kind of problems? Can we try to help you solve that? And so that's how Aya was born. We're like, how do we make it easier for founders who have this tenacity? Because you can't build a company by yourself, right? How do you have
Right,
this
right.
vision? How are you sure
Yes,
that you want to get the right people at an early stage? Because the first 15 employees are much more important than the next 500.
of
How do
course.
you get those first 15 people, right, that can help you take your idea to even just to validate it or know if it's something worth spending your time. And so we started a manual process. We started matching, aggregating talents. So Eric and I have Web3 backgrounds, blockchain backgrounds, and it was even much more difficult for blockchain focused founders to find talent. And mind you, this was a global problem. It wasn't an African problem. So the
Yeah.
first companies we even tested our pilot with were not based in Africa, right? They were all global companies who had been struggling to find talent. But because we had the
Great.
industry connections, we were able to aggregate. Eric has traveled to about 17 African countries. And so that kind of landed us to where we are, where we're a talent marketplace, enabling global startups access talents from Africa to help them scale their solutions. And so that's how we got
Amazing.
started. We arrived here today.
Amazing introduction, and what an energetic introduction, and that's great. Even currently I'm also working, like I'm in touch with University of Lagos, and there is one more university in Nigeria. What I'm also planning, because in the global market there is a thing called appointment setting and sales closing, like in US specifically, because I work in US also. So that helps people to book lot of appointments, international appointments, and lot of things. So I'm in touch with all these universities where I'm going to train all the students about the setting and the closing part. So if they know that, I'm going to also train them, so that can also help you know African businessmen like you, who want talent, like who can book calls with international clients, lot of things. That can also help. So that's a different, and yes, amazing journey that you have told till now. So Mr. Pishikeni, my next question to you is now, see, Africa, we know that it's something which is bigger, it has a lot of potential. So why Africa is becoming a big player in the global economy right now?
That's one of the most interesting questions. And just so you know, we're no longer 7 billion in the world, we're 8 billion, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
there's a report that says Africa added about 750 million of the extra 1 billion to the world population. And so you see,
Yes.
in terms of our numbers, that's like the greatest contribution we have globally. When you look at the European countries, you look at in terms of their age ranges, we have the largest global workforce, right? In terms of time
Correct.
zones, our time zones are a bit more favorable working with global companies. So it's
Correct.
like we have the people, we have not the perfect conditions. I mean, no one has the perfect conditions. But what that
Yes.
does, it makes a lot more Africans eligible to participate in the global economy. So you have a lot of Africans either traveling out or accepting, more remote work. Because the majority of the clients also speak English, which we predominantly speak in Africa. And so what
Yes.
that does is it kind of positions Africa to take advantage of that global workforce shortfall, because by 2030 there's going to be an $8.5 trillion gap in terms of talent
Yeah.
placements. And so
Yes.
Africa has the numbers. We have a lot of interesting, would I say, organizations like the one I previously worked with. And something happened when we were on this journey. We realized that there was a skill gap. And so we had participants like Coinbase Giving join us to run a pilot, what we call the iWeb3 Fellowship, which is now upskilling Africans. We had almost,
Okay.
we just planned to train like 100 people, but we got about 4,000 applications from 33 African countries, right? Which means there's that
Wow.
hunger for people who want to learn and be connected to the global ecosystem. So that's why you're hearing a lot on Africa, because we have the people, we have the age range. 65% of that population is between 18 to about 40. So these are people who have, 25 to 30 years of active service. And so, the whole world is looking to, be a part of it. And that's why we're positioning Africa as higher.
Amazing. So you have also spoken about like what AI is all about, and you have also said that how they are helping Africans, your company is helping Africans, which is great, which is amazing. That's, you guys are doing such an fantastic job. So how to spotlight more opportunities for business in Africa, according to you?
Interestingly, so if you look at the current funding, especially venture funding, where the money flows, that's where value is, right? And so you see that a lot of African startups are raising money. And the reason is we have a lot of people with growing consumer spending, the population is growing, the need for technology to scale out a lot of solutions. So from healthcare to fintech to reg tech to insure tech, right? The penetrations are not so high. So in terms of business opportunities, Africa is very ripe in, the workforce being young, being more tech savvy. So you have a lot more people who would know how to use a mobile, a tech phone, a smartphone, than almost any other continent. And so, if you're able to
Yes.
build those day-to-day applications, there's a lot of prospects. And the good thing is, we don't have so much legacy infrastructure that it becomes so difficult for us to adopt modern technologies. I think that's what you see in some other continents. Were exposed to so much legacy infrastructure, so the people already had a particular way of doing things. But what you're having is people going from purely analog to digital, and so they are willing to
Yes.
embrace it much much faster. It's the first form of
Yes.
digital they are getting used to. And so you see
Yes.
people pioneering a lot of fintech. People can easily send money home. We have a lot of people moving out of the continent, and
Yeah.
so for them to send money home, they have to work with fintech applications, and they have to teach their relatives who are not so exposed to use those applications because they need it to access money, right? People are even
Yes.
able to pay for their healthcare for their parents, pay for insurance for their parents. And so because of the growing population, people traveling, intra-African trade, that is facilitating a lot of business opportunities. And I bet you that in the next 5 years, I mean, who isn't planting this year might not be able to get it in the next 5 years. And so it's like you say, a global rush for people to start taking a lot of market share. But interestingly so, it's going to be more of a collaborative than competitive effort if we want to
Of
truly
course.
provide for everyone in Africa.
100%. It's everywhere, yeah. Even in US right now, like in coaching industry specifically, many coaches now they're coming together because everybody have their own community, everybody have their own students. Somebody have 5,000, someone have 1,000. So now they are coming together. Okay, let's do something for all 6,000. Let's make
Yeah.
something new because now we are not living in a era like COVID-19 has proved one thing, that we are not in an era of any competition now. This is all about collaboration. The more we collaborate, the more we are going to serve the society, which is amazing. I love this trend, the digital. We are in the digital revolution now. So Mr. Pishikeni, my next question to you is like, youth are the main power of Africa. You guys have Africa has the youngest youth right now. So how should they plan now their new year? Now 2023 is coming in next 2 days. So how should they plan their new year resolution? Like how should, because youth are the one who are going to take African continent forward. So what do you think?
That's a very interesting question. I think for us, the first thing to do is be computer literate, right? I mean, just know how to use a laptop. And when I say know how
Yeah.
to use, we're not just talking about the basic Excel, but be conversant with a laptop. One of the things that we have seen is there's a strong found. If you have a strong, computer foundation, it's easier to build on that, right? Whether you're using a Slack or a Zoom or even the platform we're using for this call, which was not possible, like 10 years ago, but it makes collaboration much, much faster. Having that fundamental understanding will definitely position you for much more global opportunities. So I think the first thing we'd say to anybody for next year, make sure you are very, very comfortable with a laptop, because that will most likely, whether you're working locally or globally, all organizations are looking for, and it cuts across any field, right? People always feel that it had to be the software developers who know their way around a laptop, but that's wrong, right? So when we're recruiting for companies, you want an accountant that is very tech savvy. That now becomes like a fundamental hiring guideline. Tech savvy, comfortable with OneDrive, Office 365, Google Suite, Amazon email. So the bar has kind of gone higher than, oh, I just know how to use Microsoft and Excel. But people
Yes.
even being able to use Canva, using Notion. Those are gradually becoming what the standard looks like. So you have to be really, really comfortable. But the funny thing about technology is they all have a foundation, right? So knowing how to use one would most likely lead you, because most of the user experiences are similar. So for anyone going to 2023, you have to get to that level of comfortability and also be willing to learn. I mean, new technologies keep on coming out. We have to keep up because they keep on raising the bar. You have low code tools, tools that optimize workflows. Slack has so many bots that integrate Zapier. So that
Yes.
kind of gives you an idea of how global you need to be in terms of your upscaling. So that's the first thing
Right.
you could do. And like I said, cuts across any discipline, even in legal. We have tech legal companies who are built solely on those kind of collaboration software.
Great. Oh, amazing, and I totally understand what you have just said. So my next question to you is right now, see, we have seen there are a lot of challenges in Africa. You also know that. So my question is, yes, Africa is doing great. It has, everybody wants to come to Africa. If you're an investor from outside, if you're a foreign investor, you want to go to Africa and you want to invest. But my question to you is right now, why Africa is still lagging behind as a continent when it compared to North America, Europe, and all these, continents. One thing what I feel like, see, there is one thing called first mover. Okay, we know that USA is always a first mover. US is a superpower, no doubt. US always bring new technology, everything will come, from USA, no doubt. But the great thing about these continents are they are also fast movers. you know they are first movers, but they are also fast movers. They want to implement as fast as they can. So this one reason I feel like, why Africa lags behind, and what are other reasons according to you?
Yeah, so that's a very interesting question for someone who is really, really involved in how regulations are being shaped across the continent. We see
Yeah.
that there has been a lot of influence from outside of the continent to shape things the way they want them to go, right? And
Yeah.
so we're getting a new generation of Africans who are taking charge. So if you look at the
Yes.
last 10 years, there has been an innovation outburst across Africa because you had
Right.
people who had been outside the continent and could not understand why Africa wasn't moving faster. A typical example is in Nigeria, we just signed the Startup Act, which favors and encourages startups to grow because that's how the greatest economies were built. From India and to Latam, the companies working in Latin America, North America,
Yes.
they had that component of fast tracking the growth of companies because that's how your GDP grows. That's how your workforce gets more jobs. That's how your labor force is continuously employed. That's how you can export talent. And so that's one of the things that have slowed us down. But over the next 15 years, with what we're seeing across the continent, governments being more interested, right, in working with early stage companies like us, because we are thinking from a global perspective. We're not just thinking
Right.
of working for just the individual countries that we're in. My company employs staff from about 6 different African countries, right? That was not possible like 15 years ago because most of the countries were interested in locking down their talent, right? But breaking
Yes.
down those
Yes.
geographical borders is speeding up regulation, speeding up collaboration, and that's one major thing that kept us lagging behind. So watch out, Africa is definitely going to catch up.
Of course it will. No doubt. No doubt about it. So, Mr. Pishikeni, where do you see yourself after 5 years? And also, are you open to collaborate with others? Like you believe in collaboration?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. In the next 5 years, I would comfortably be shaping regulations across Africa in terms of talent development and collaboration with global companies. And from day one, we have been collaboration first. A typical example of what that would look like is we have about 9 collaborations with talent development organizations across Africa. So rather than going through the headache of aggregating all these talents, why don't partner with people who have spent the last 4 or 5 years training, identifying, right, and working with them to connect them to the global stage? Because our mission is the same: connect 10 million Africans with global opportunities. We want to unlock that potential. And like I always say, it's more of a collaborative than competitive effort. So we're looking to collaborate with as
Yes.
many partners. We have currently about 13 different partners. We want to triple that number because they will help us
Yes.
spread across the 54 African countries. We can only
Of
cover
course.
as much footprints, but with partnerships, we can definitely cover the continent in the next 10 years. And we're willing to, put everything on the table because it aligns with our mission. So next 5 years,
Right.
I'll still be here, collaborating with countries at a bigger level, right, to shape their policies, to help them get global fit talent, and helping them collaborate with the global organizations to secure those partnerships.
Yes. Thank you so much, Mr. Pishikeni, for your openness, that you have just answered everything so briefly. So, what do you want to appeal to the investors of North America, Europe, and even, now I'm also in touch with some investors of Dubai and India who are watching this episode about how big is African market?
One of the things we want them to do is also provide us the expertise. I think it's not always a cash standpoint, but for someone who has
Yes.
raised venture capital, the expertise is more important than even the cash at times. So that
Yes. Yes.
expertise to put in the right structures, because that's still a part of investment. There's a lot of value. I mean, would I say decacorn-like value, which is 10 billion and above, in terms of looking at the African talent space, but also the expertise, also the partnerships to connect them to global institutions, because we're positioning Africa for that 2030 report to fill in an $8.5 trillion gap. So it's bringing in that value to help us create those global structures, collaborate with the global regulations to also shape those things because they have the experience. We're working based on our gut, our intuition. We're learning on the job, right? We've been in the field. But for some investors who have had 20 to 30 years of experience, know how to solve these challenges, we need them to come and partner with us and, create a lot of value out of Africa.
Yes, of course, So, Mr. Pishikeni, my last question to you, uh, you know, this question I ask in every episode, because this is my one of the common questions, and I love to ask and take other people views on this. What advice do you want to give to a youngster between 18 to 25 who is watching this episode right now?
My first advice would be connect with the global space. One of the mistakes I made was we were thinking locally, right? And thinking
Yes.
locally changes, it gives you a very, it's one side of the story. But being more connected with the global space paints a bigger picture. Number two would be, like I said, and I'll go back to getting the digital skills because that is a fundamental thing. The more comfortable you are with technology, the higher your chances, of working in that global space. You could be in healthcare, agriculture, legal, whatever space it is. That is one of the biggest prerequisites, right, for you to be able to give value. And then secondly, just have a very strong attitude to learn. I've had a lot more learning opportunities than payment opportunities. But at the end of the day, those learning opportunities converted into payment opportunities. And so getting internships as early as possible with global organizations, I wish that taking advantage of a lot of those things. And they're specifically targeted for people between 18 to 25, which is a very funny thing. And I would love them to start taking advantage, making a global
Yes.
footprint, because that's the only way we can build Africa, by thinking from that global perspective.
Amazing. Yes. And I would also like to add last thing. Like, to all the youth, just go and invest in yourself. I say this in every episode. Yes, you have to invest in yourself. You have to invest in new skills. Now we are not living in an age where I'm just completely dependent on my university, where I'm just studying and I'm just completely dependent on the piece of degree. No, it won't work. It won't work anymore. Corporates don't need such people, even if you want to go for a job placement. They want somebody who can do a lot of things. They know somebody who knows all these digital skills as well. That's what makes you stand different from the other people or your competitors or your colleagues, and that will give you a competitive advantage. So go and invest in yourself, and that's my new year resolution for you guys. Go and invest in yourself, learn new skills, come to the ground and hit it big, as simple as that. So thank you so much, Mr. Pishikeni. And
Thank you very much.
I wish all the viewers a very happy new year. So I'll see them in next year now. And
Yeah,
thank you so much,
wishing a
Mr.
happy
Pishikeni.
new
Happy
year
New
too.
Year to you as well. So enjoy your new year. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you for having me. All right, thank you.
Yes, all my pleasure.